Greetings and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to 3 Peas in a Pod, episode 282.
We made it.
Yes, we did, Nathan. Thank you for reminding me about that.
I like to make sure everyone knows.
Yes, and something I noticed the other day. I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Okay. You're a very observant person.
I am, and I noticed something on almost all the podcasts that I listen to that have more than one person that we never do, is they make sure they introduce everybody.
Oh, that's true.
That's like a thing among podcasts.
That's
and
true.
I realized I'm not been a good host because I have not introduced each of our voices. Because especially for the people who are just listening, not watching.
That is true.
They don't know which voices.
Yeah, we double dip a little bit. We're one of those, we've got video and audio, so we don't know how everyone.
So are we really a podcast?
Well, I was listening to a podcast the other day that was about that, of they are not a double dipper. They don't do both. They just do the audio. Because, almost every podcast now has gone to, they have a video element too.
Yes, that's true.
And Spotify on some of those will let you flip between them.
Ooh.
Like while you're listening, you can be like, let me see what they're looking like now. And you flip to. And they were talking about, their whole point was you need to pick.
Oh.
You need to pick. You're either audio or your video.
Okay.
And
I wonder what our audience would pick if they picked which one they would rather.
I think by and large.
Say video.
What?
The numbers say video.
The numbers say video.
There you go.
So you're saying, Charlie, our producer, saying more people watch than just listen.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
Is it because of our dashing good looks?
Yes.
Yes.
That's the only reason.
It has to.
Since
Why else would you look
now,
at us?
since they're looking, I can do head shake and everybody saw it.
That's true.
Ed, for those of you, few people who are listening, Ed shaking his head.
That's right.
So
I have no other reason to think they'd want to watch
I don't know why I brought that
I don't know
up,
why they'd want to listen to this.
but I just thought of that the other day. I was listening to my many podcast feeds, and I went, I never do that. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I will.
This is
Charlie, you should figure
this
that. You
is
should find out how many
Jason.
downloads we have versus how many.
Yeah.
I'll do that now, and I'll tell you by the end of the episode.
There we
Jason
go.
right here.
Thanks for the intro.
Jason Collins in the center,
Mhm.
which you can't see.
You
if
can't
you're on.
see that. You got to do it right on the.
He's
on
in the
Jason just
center of
spoke,
your
and then
ears.
that's Nathan interrupting.
Yes.
Yes. That should be the name of the podcast. Jason speaking, Nathan's interrupting.
And no, you're pretty good about not interrupting.
And Ed shaking his head.
I'm the one that has a hard time not interrupting.
You're all right. I'm okay with your
Oh.
level of interruptions
Okay.
these days.
We all like each other. That's what we'll say.
Most days, yeah.
We all like each
Yeah.
other.
Mm.
So
For the
Jason
most-
had to qualify that.
Yeah.
Well,
I wonder which days.
yeah, you might.
No,
I always. I don't like always and never.
That's true.
Oh.
That's true.
In
That's
fact, in couples therapy,
no.
those are 2 words that I often tell my couples to eliminate from their vocabulary.
Those are good words to eliminate. Just in general,
Whitney
those are
Houston would disagree.
That's true.
And Dolly.
good. I say Dolly really disagrees. But
Dolly did first.
yeah.
But yeah, and of course there's context to that. But that's usually what I hear in couples work is
Where you're usually wrong. If you say always and never,
I know.
all I gotta do is find one thing.
That's
Yeah,
right, you do.
boy.
That's right. Well, and that's what the way it says. You never do this. Well, what about the one time I did?
And then now the whole thing is done.
Now we're off to the
Yep.
races. Yeah.
Yeah.
That and
Now I don't have to listen to anything you said
That's
because
right.
I found one
always
time.
and never. Yes. So we eliminate always and never, and the other one is name calling,
Mm.
which is a big deal for a
I
lot of couples.
Apologize for saying your name was Jason.
You can call me that one because
Oh, okay.
that's the
All
one
right.
I was given.
All right.
But there's some other names you could call me.
Yeah, I could. Can't think of any right now that I want to.
Well, that means you must like me today.
I do.
I got a question, y'all. Y'all
Good.
ready? Y'all ready for the question?
You're holding.
I'm holding the question.
There you go.
For the listeners, I'm holding the question in my hand from a viewer or listener, I don't know which, about the Bible.
We should put that as a tab.
Yeah.
Do you watch
You watch
this?
or
You
listen.
don't have to tell us who you are, but do you watch or do you listen?
right.
And why do you watch?
That's right. Do you see Ed's head shaking all the time?
Because it happens a lot.
A lot. He's like a bobblehead over there.
It's
just moving.
No.
All right, y'all ready for this?
Yes.
This is a good one. Can you discuss the evidence that we have that the Bible is accurate? From your perspective, why do you believe it is real? I know it is a key part of Christianity, but how do we know that it's not just another book? And then they add this comment. I've listened to Bart Ehrman. We know who Bart Ehrman is. He is a historical scholar that you've mentioned in the past. He is skeptical. Yes, we have said that.
Yes,
He is a very great. He used to be a follower of Jesus.
Yeah, he
did.
was.
He did.
he did.
And he is no longer. Quite a long time, though. I remember when I was in Bible college, which was over 30 years ago.
With Bart Ehrman?
No.
Oh.
But we did use one of his books.
Yeah, he was a believer.
Yeah, we used one of his
Yeah.
books as a textbook.
Yeah.
It was like one of my intro Bible classes.
I have never heard him discuss why he stopped.
That might
That
be
that would be an
I bet
interesting.
it's out there somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe not.
Yeah.
But maybe not. But anyway, so back to the original question. So can we discuss the evidence that we believe that the Bible is accurate, and why do we believe it's real, not just some other book?
So maybe what we should do first,
All right.
because I think probably the more compelling conversation will be, why do we believe
Mm.
it's real? And I think maybe even equal to real, why is it authoritative,
Mhm.
right? Why does it have any authority?
Mhm.
But the first question of, can we discuss the evidence? None of us, I don't want to say always and never, or none,
No, you don't.
but we are not
We're not scholars.
scholars
No, we're
that
not.
have a
We're not.
lot of evidence, nor do I have even the most current evidence that people are using for
Mhm.
these things. But I do think, like Bart Ehrman, there are other scholars that maybe we could point
Yeah.
you to say, these are people who are experts when it comes to biblical
In
evidence.
fact, I was going to say, I'll tell you one guy I've just recently gotten into. He's
Okay.
really good. His name's Wesley Huff.
I know it's
He got real popular a few months back when he was on the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yes.
But he's a scholar. He's from Canada, and he's a part of that Apologetics Canada group up there.
Yep.
They do some really good work. But I've been following him on Instagram recently. He's
Yes.
really good with taking complex textual biblical issues of how do we know certain texts are preserved correctly and
Yeah.
all down. He's got a lot of, and he does a good job with making it real simple. He's really entertaining. He does a lot of travel and the archaeology and stuff.
Yep.
So if you're into that, I would really check his stuff out. I think it's really, really good.
And then I would say, I mean, we were just talking about this today in a different meeting, but I still find a lot of Lee Strobel's work around like books
Mhm.
like The Case for Christ. He has a book
Yeah.
called The Case for Faith,
He just recently did the case for miracles.
for miracles.
He has a case for the Bible.
Okay.
Case for the Bible. So he's got a lot of real, and once again, he himself is not a scholar. He was a journalist, but he's really good, similar to Wesley Huff, of kind of condensing the information in a way that for most people,
Mhm.
it is easier to digest.
Mhm.
I find a lot of Greg Boyd has a lot of really good answers around these questions, and he has a podcast where he answers questions.
His book, Letters to a Skeptic, is excellent.
Right.
Actually, he's writing back and forth with his father, who
Right.
at the time was not a believer. His father eventually came to faith
Yep.
out of those conversations, and he basically collected those series of emails that they just had conversations back and forth. Very, very good book.
So I would say any of those experts
Mhm.
are people that if you want to know, like, if you want to get deep in the weeds on, give me some points of evidence that I can look at and find, sources for and that kind of stuff, they're going to be more knowledgeable than anything we can bring here, because
Yes.
that's not, I know it seems weird, that's not the world we swim in as pastors. I had this
No.
conversation with someone recently that I get why these questions come to three pastors. I get why you might think this would be it, but the job of a pastor is not to be the most knowledgeable person about the Bible or about every question about the Bible. Our job is really to, one, we are to lead the church, the gathering of God's people, to be more Christ-like, to live in the kingdom of God. And each of us, even within our church, we really focus on different aspects of what that looks like as far as our career goes. And so, once again, not to use none and all, but we don't see it as our job as knowing every bit of information on every topic pertaining to the Bible. And so that is not, I would assume that we all have gone through these questions ourselves. We've had, and so the question about why do we find it,
Mhm.
I think we can talk about that, but I do think it's important. I'm just learning the more I'm engaging with people. I think there's an assumption of, if it's something that's said in the Bible, the fact that you're a pastor probably means you're an expert on that individual thing. But the Bible is massive.
Mhm.
And the theological questions that have come from the Bible are so large that for 2,000 years, Christians have agreed, disagreed, argued, debated, still held unity with one another around Jesus, but have had lots of different discussions along, I mean, not infinite, but numerous topics. So these are some people who that's the thing they specialize in, is the evidence around the authority and the accuracy of the Bible. But so that was my thought on the first question.
So are you, if I'm hearing you correctly, I'm hearing you say maybe we should just simply start there and answer the question, why do we, what has convinced us?
Yeah, I think that might be, unless anybody has some really good evidence that.
No, I think y'all have done such a good job of pointing people to other people. And they're numerous. I mean, there are numerous people from my age and older who are still alive, who have been doing this forever.
Is Josh McDowell still alive?
No, but his son is taking up the mantle and has the same kind of.
Sean
McDowell.
I'm trying to think. I cannot think. There's a guy whose name I've been trying to pull out of my head for a long time.
Still alive. Maybe he's not.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
we're not allowed to pronounce people dead or alive on this podcast.
Hey, we don't know that either.
The good thing is that is easy for you to Google while you listen to us.
Google that.
And we probably will as soon as we get off.
Yeah, that's right. So I think I would encourage you, if you really care about all of that kind of thing, I think it's important, the person said at the end, or is it just like any other book? Well, I do think it's important to look at the history. The Bible has some historical parts to it. And I think you want to study the Bible, you want to study textually, and all of these people go at it. You want to study it the way you would study any other ancient document to determine if you think it's been handed down to us in a way that appears to be accurate. Now, that's not the way I came to believe in the Bible. I've gone the opposite way from Bart Ehrman. When I was originally in college, I was a person who said I didn't believe the Bible. I had my own reasons. I was raised in a faith, but didn't become a Christian. And I had my own reasons for why I wouldn't want to believe the Bible, and was challenged by a person who was in the same college to just describe to them why. And I found I didn't really have great arguments for why, that this very common person was able to take those down, which infuriated me. And they pointed me to what eventually became for me where I got to why I believe the Bible. And it all goes to, you said the Bible is key to Christianity. It is. And I don't want to do this circular argument around it, but the key of Christianity is Jesus.
Yeah.
And where I've come to is Jesus existed before the Bible as we have it existed. Yes. There's nobody that really doubts that, other than the original 39 books of the Old Testament and some of what we call Apocrypha, or if you're a Catholic, you don't call it that, but we do. And but the books of the New Testament, before there was ever 66 books put together, and Christianity had already become the growing religion in the world.
Yes.
And that's what the person said to me at the time. And then it became to, how can I know that the resurrection is most likely happened? That's really the crux of Christianity. Yeah. Christianity rises and falls on whether Jesus rose from the grave or not.
To quote Andy Stanley, he says it wasn't the Bible that created Christianity, it was Christianity that created the Bible.
Yeah, these were certainly be documents that would have gone away if the movement of Christianity hadn't already been taking place by the time the 66 got put together.
Yes.
And I don't think there's any historian that really denies that. The only reason we have the 66 in the form that we do is because Christianity had become such a huge movement that had gone from being the government of Rome puts him to death to they become persecuted by the Romans until they become the state religion of Rome 350 years later.
Right.
Every historian has a way to explain that. You just have to come to that's historically true of what happened. Nobody denies that happened. And there are a lot of other little religions with would-be messiahs that took place at the exact same time of Jesus. In fact, some of them are sort of even mentioned in the book of Acts, where Gamaliel says we should not oppose this because wasn't there another guy?
Yeah.
And they were all around that kind of period. And not only do we not know their name outside of the Bible and some other documents, most people don't even know who that was or that it was going on. So for me, it was doing the research on why do I think most likely, because again, our faith is a faith, which means, do I know with 100% certainty that Jesus rose from the dead? I don't. I absolutely believe it happened. I absolutely have interacted with Jesus in my own life and have had that experience personally. But can I tell you that I stood there and watched it take place? No. If that's what you mean by certainty, would I vote for him to be acquitted or convicted in a court of breaking the Roman law and breaking the seal? I most likely would vote that he broke the Roman seal when he came out of the tomb. So for me, that's where it started. Once I got convinced that Jesus was the Son of God, then most of the stuff that the world knows about Jesus comes from the Bible, and it was backwards for me. Now, that may not make sense to you. That's the road that led me to having faith in Jesus, was starting with the resurrection, not the opposite way around. And I don't really know where Bart got off on the other side, but Bart Urban. So anyway, that's me.
I do think I've heard him talk about his is the reverse. It's the resurrection is what got him reversed.
Well, I've heard him talk. I think he, by nature, eliminates supernatural.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And so I think if by nature you don't believe the supernatural ever occurs, it's going to be hard for you to believe the Bible.
Yeah.
But you then have to be honest with yourself. Why do I eliminate the supernatural?
Yeah.
I mean, you're admitting that everything that possibly could happen, you've seen happen, or you know that it happened, and it's illogical that you wouldn't know about it. While we know that I'm sitting in a room right now where there's all kinds of colors around me in the spectrum that I can't see just physically. That does not mean they don't exist.
Yeah.
They're here. So to deny a document just because you say, I know supernatural events don't take place. Well, supernatural and miracles by nature are generally one-time events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason, have you had, what was your journey on all of that?
Very similar. Well, no, not very similar. I shouldn't say that. I would say my personal internal journey was similar to what Ed described. But I was brought up in a church system, religion, where it was just assumed the Bible was authoritative. You just took it. And I would say for me, I started probably in my late 20s. I didn't necessarily walk away from faith, but I started wondering why there were so many questions, or people like a guy like Bart Ehrman, who, they had arguments against what I had always believed to be true. And it was like, oh, wait a minute. I don't want this to be based on something that isn't true. Right. So I got really into what we call apologetics, and that, which is, just defending the veracity of our faith, the evidence that we have that the Bible is true, or that it records true events. I don't even like to say the Bible is. I can get into that later, but it contains accounts of true events, and so I started down that road, and that's when I discovered the guys that were hot when I was coming up were Josh McDowell. He was the one that wrote the definitive, evidence that demands a verdict, and More Than a Carpenter. He wrote that one, right, and all that kind of stuff. And so that kind of appealed to me. I've always been a thinker before I was a feeler. And so I liked the intellectual stuff that I dove into to find out, how do we know that what we hold in our hands, the accounts written in the Bible, actually are what was originally written by the authors. And I started finding out that, the claims from a lot of people that, these were just legends that just sort of crept in over the years. And yes, Jesus existed, but he didn't never do any supernatural stuff. He certainly didn't rise from the dead. After he died, his disciples didn't want his legacy to die. And so they made up these stories and all that. And I started going, maybe they did. And I started looking into that. And then it just became less and less likely, seeing what happened in history, like Ed said, that something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened that changed everything on Easter morning. And that's when I began to center my faith, not on the Bible itself, but on the person of Jesus and the event of his resurrection. And I realized that something happened to change those men and women. And then amazing things started birthing out of that time and that place that nobody can deny, not even scholars. You know, even the ones who wouldn't necessarily buy into the resurrection, they all could. They have their other reasons, but they do not deny that that something happened that changed the course of history and the course of those men and women's lives. And they died for that, and they preserved it to the point where they wrote this down. And it's the Bible is the most preserved ancient document in the history of mankind. We cannot deny that.
Yeah.
Even the skeptics can't.
No one denies that.
No one denies that at all. And so it's interesting to me that I think sometimes people put a standard on the manuscripts of the Bible that they will not put on other historical documents. And Ed's already mentioned, you need to evaluate it the same way. And a lot of us grow up reading these very ancient documents in school and even in college and all on throughout. And we just assume, yeah, this is what was written and this is the accurate piece of literature that I have in my hand. And the evidence for those pieces, you know, some of the most well-loved ancient manuscripts of all time have a fraction of the evidence that the Bible has. The Bible is thousands and thousands and thousands of times over attested to. In fact, there's that old thing of you could eliminate every handwritten copy of the Bible itself or Scripture itself and still not lose it, because it is referenced so much in other pieces of literature that you could piece it back all together. It is so influential and so well attested to. And once I started diving into that world, and like I said, scholars like Wesley Huff and those guys who that's all they do. They live, eat, and breathe this stuff. It made my faith more solid, not less. And so that's where I stand today. So.
Yeah. I think similar journey for both of them. I think, you know, I grew up in church, grew up in community Christian church, and I never questioned anything about the Bible until I was in college, and had some professors that really pushed against some things that I had always just taken as fact. And so I read a bunch of stuff, read Case for Christ, read different kind of, I read some work by Greg Boyd and people like that. It was very helpful to me. And focusing on the resurrection as the key point, because that's a historical event that either happened or didn't happen. Then from that, you can get to that if Jesus did rise from the dead, then he is the Son of God. He is the Messiah of Israel, which then goes back and gives evidence to the Old Testament. But the one single piece of information that honestly was most convicting to me is kind of what Jason was hinting to there, is the amount of manuscript evidence we have for particular the New Testament. And what that means is, as you probably know, or maybe you don't know, I didn't know at the time, like we don't have full manuscripts of any ancient document because the material just doesn't last that long, right? But we do have lots of early manuscripts for the Bible, and I think it's somewhere in like the multiple thousands of manuscripts for the New Testament, whereas things like the life of Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar,
the writings of Plato.
Yeah, Plato and Homer, we have like in the dozens. And so, but no one questions the veracity of, is this actually what Plato wrote? Is this actually, or like the historical events of Alexander the Great, there's not a lot of questioning of, was a person Alexander the Great actually live? And so when I took that to the questions I had about Jesus, I kind of went, oh, to your point, there is vastly more reason to think that these are, once again, authentic to what the people originally wrote. Now, you can have questions about whether they made up the stuff that they wrote, but the idea of what we call the transmission of it, the fact that the book we have now, that you can go pick up at any bookstore, is authentic to what was written 2,000 years, and then for the Old Testament, even longer before, that evidence is really high. And then even you could research things about like the Dead Sea Scrolls and things like that are very, you know, all these different things kind of led to it. But this is what I'll say, because I don't know who wrote this, and I don't know where you're at. If you're at the point of like Ed was talking about when he was in college and you're a pure skeptic, you've never believed and you kind of come, or are you at the place where you have believed and now you're questioning? One thing I think is important for my journey to understand is I really wanted it to be true. I don't know that there was a way for me to approach this, and this may lose credibility for you. I really wanted it to be true. When someone pushed against it, I did not have I had the thought, and it was a fearful thought of what if this isn't true? Because I really want it to be true. And this may be because, whatever personality test you want to put it on, where I sit kind of in the Enneagram or whatever. I don't always approach things from just a purely logical point. My favorite class in all of college, and then led to a lot of the stuff I do, was philosophy, the class everyone hates. I really loved it. A really good professor. And one thing he said was the only true objectivity is subjectivity made aware of itself. And his point is the only way you either really want it to be true, you really want it not to be true, you really want certainty in life, you have some subjective point of view you're bringing to this. None of us can be purely objective. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this and I don't know Bart, so I don't want to tell what it is, but even Bart Ehrman can't be purely objective about it. There is the fact that you have the question and you want to pursue the question. There is something underlying that. And the way I chose to live my life, and the way that Ed kind of talked about it, when it comes to faith, all of us are making faith determinations about whether the Bible is accurate or not accurate. The thing that was most to me was I've always wanted to live my life of going, I want to get to the closest reasonable thing I can, but then at some point I just have to choose. I could live my life. There's no way for me to be convinced of my wife's love for me, her faithfulness and devotion to me. And I could live, as many people do, constantly suspicious and skeptical of everything you say, tear it apart. I mean, we're living in a world right now where there are people who have taken their own life because they have questioned things on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT has convinced them you're living in a simulation. There's nothing that is real, because if you question everything, and that's a, philosophy, that's Descartes' point of view. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a terrible point of view. And there are a lot of philosophers who now have come back and gone, this idea of hyperbolic doubt everything, does not often lead to truth.
Well, it's just not, human beings are not made to function in a world. I certainly have a bent towards cynicism, less so now than I ever have. But I remember hearing somebody saying that I stole the title and used it in a message of fish are perfectly designed for water, and human beings are perfectly designed for faith and trust. Mm-hmm. You can't. No one lives in most people don't. Every building they go into, they didn't build. They don't know how it was structured. They don't know for sure that the person who engineered it and constructed it did it in a way that it won't collapse on them when they're in there. So when they open the door, it is an act of faith. Yeah. It's an act of faith at every traffic light, that when it turns green on your side. Yeah. Now, every time it has happened, it's always been red on the other side. Mm-hmm. But it's an act of faith that you pull through that.
That's right.
That thing, believing, you just trust that the other side worked the way it's supposed to.
Yeah.
It's just what we're intended for. And when you don't do that way, when you doubt everything, you do become unfit for the way humans are meant to. And it becomes a little bit of a form of, you're not equipped to move and act in this world. Well, you can't do relationships.
No. You won't be well for long.
No.
I mean, because there are people, and it becomes a mental health condition that you have.
Yes.
That I have to get certainty on every issue before I can make any decision. And then eventually you just can't make decisions.
Well, and that's part of what OCD does to people.
Yes.
I have to trust that even that when you said what you just said, that my brain interpreted it correctly.
Sure.
So that I can act on it, because there does come a point where there's medical conditions where that doesn't happen.
That's
but
right.
Everybody I know, when they have that medical condition, the way that they have it is they still act as what they heard was true,
right?
Even though it wasn't true. You know what I mean?
I'm getting deep philosophically.
I'm just saying.
There. Yeah.
So Nathan's right. We make choices about, And we have to admit, when I went into it originally, I hate to be in debates where somebody tells me I'm wrong, and particularly when I was 18, 19, and want to prove it. And for me, it came to the point that it did switch for me. I originally just wanted to be right.
Yeah.
And I couldn't develop enough evidence that I myself was convinced I could be right enough that a smarter person wouldn't come along and make clear I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I just bought in. That's the truth. And then I did have some life experiences that pushed me over the edge. That's the honest truth.
Yeah.
And I made a choice at that point. I'm going to go with this. And I used to say, because I heard a man named Tony Campolo, who I know is dead.
Yes,
not because I killed him. I remember when it happened.
Yeah.
Yes.
He used to say, I would be a Christian even if it turns out it's false.
Mm.
And that's where it's become for me after doing it for a long time. I have become convinced it's the best way for me to live. I like the way that Jesus has led me to treat other people. I like the way that his teaching and my faith in him has led me to become a different person than I was on my own. I am not as cynical as I used to be. I'm not as hard toward people as I used to be. I have developed a different kind of way of interacting with myself and with the world that has led me to a place where I can be at peace with me and with almost everybody. And
Almost.
yeah, almost. As long as
That's right.
as long as you'll allow it to happen, I can. As much as it depends on me,
Mhm.
I can be at peace.
And that's from the Bible.
That is from the Bible.
Well, that's what I'd say is if you're at the place where you can doubt everything we've said because of our motives, we're pastors. And
Sure.
We get a paycheck that's based on all of it. All that's true. And I can't deny any
No.
of that. But what I would say is the first thing is trying to figure out, is it real? I think that's an important question to get to. And are there reasons to do that? Does it have authority? Because Jesus has authority in my life. Absolutely. But the place I've really gotten to, and I would hope that really every believer would get to is do I love the scriptures? Do I love that when I am with Jesus in reading the scriptures, there is a life that I find in there. As Ed said, there's something that comes alive in me that ultimately is more powerful than just, well, I know it's right. And now when someone comes to me and says, you shouldn't believe that, I know I'm certain that I'm right. There is something that comes from, I want to spend time with the scripture because I'm spending time with Jesus. Something in the spirit comes alive when I'm in the scriptures. That's where you, and what I'm trying to say is if that is where you're at and you've suddenly started to question, it's okay that you want it to be true because you love it.
I don't know who said it, but I love this quote. Faith has its reasons of which reason knows nothing.
Yeah.
Mm.
I've heard that.
I've heard that too, but I
That's
don't know who
beautiful.
says it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I fall in that space right there.
Yep.
So, all right. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you want to get in on the question asking and like to send us a similar or not so similar question, if you're on YouTube, go to the description right now. There will be a link in there. Producer Charlie promises me there will be a link in there. And you can send us a question. If you're not watching, you're listening, I believe it's in what they call the show notes, right? Is that what they call it?
It's called a description as
The
well.
description? Okay.
Yeah.
I see how much I know
On
about podcasting.
YouTube, it's description. But hey, did you find an answer to our question?
Oh, that's right.
For video, in the last 90 days, we've had 500 people watch our podcast.
Okay.
And about 100 listen.
all right.
Wow.
So a lot more.
5-1
There you go.
watching and listening.
People are watching.
So there's your answer.
there
So
you go.
we are a YouTube hit.
No, not at 500.
No.
No.
In
Close
our
to
own
Taylor
minds.
Swift.
In our
Those
own
are Taylor
minds.
Swift numbers right
That's
there.
right. So have a good week, and we'll be back. I don't know what the question or topic will be next week, so I'll be just as surprised as you will. So see you then. Bye.